Well, we're here in Davos and PwC puts out its annual CEO survey. This is the 21st edition and India has made it to the top 5 most attractive markets for 2018. Joining us now is the global chairman of PwC, Bob Moritz. Bob, appreciate you joining us here. First about India. We've beaten Japan to get into the top 5. What's worked for the India story?
I think two things have worked for the India story. One is the fact that when organizations around the world look at the demographics of India, they see tremendous opportunity. That goes to the workforce that's well educated and well positioned for the future, where perhaps other countries maybe not as well positioned, as well as the needs from a consumption perspective. So I think that's one very important thing that people are focused on. The second is, in fact, the reforms that Prime Minister Modi and the administration are trying to accomplish in terms of minimizing the issues around corruption or dealing with some of the issues around currency, the things that he's done in this past year. And people see that what he has done is actually starting to provide results. So I think people are willing to take advantage of the opportunities and see that as an opportunity for not necessarily just the short term, but the long term that is obviously derived from the Indian organization in the country to drive ahead and be in the top 5.
You know, we talked about the opportunities that India presents and consumption continues to be the key growth driver. In terms of the challenges or in terms of the unaddressed issues, what is topmost on the minds of global CEOs?
I think in the case of India, it's how do I actually gain access to the country to work together with some of the rules and laws that are in place in terms of co-investing or the requirements to be there. Second is the rule of law. In terms of the court system, when you have issues, how do you actually manage through those in a timely way with a degree of certainty that, in fact, it doesn't become uncertain to them. They like certainty in process to know what to do and how to do it, not necessarily the end result, but at least the process to try to get to an end result. And I think that's where they'll be looking for more movement in that direction, more certainty, and again, at a federal level, but also at a local level, looking ahead.
You were part of the dinner that the Prime Minister hosted at the India reception with global CEOs as well as Indian business leaders. What was the big takeaway?
The real confidence in India and the confidence in the government. It was a fabulous dinner. The meal was excellent. And of course the...
Ghar ka khana?
Bilkul ghar ka khana. But the Prime Minister was really very eloquent in talking about why India is resurgent, and the CEO certainly agreed with that.
Okay, since we're talking about the India story, you know, what's the plan for India on behalf of Deloitte? You've just done a deal with BMR in India, so what more can we expect now?
We've been in India 125 years. We expect to be there for a very long time. We've got 42,000 people. We will grow to 70,000 in the next couple of years. For us, India is not a cost arbitrage play. It's a talent arbitrage play. And so India is incredibly important for us, not only to serve India, but also to take advantage of the next industrial revolution, Industry 4.0.
But speaking of global optimism, and at this point in time, the global recovery is gaining more momentum and more strength. Financial markets world over in a different trajectory. Does this now start to worry you when you reach this kind of perhaps overconfidence, if some would call it that?
I think the recovery is very secular, and it is also across the globe, as you said, both certainly in the developed countries like the United States and in Europe, but also in the real growth countries like India. India is projected to grow at nearly 8%, and we're very bullish on India. China, very stable growth. So I think we are very confident in terms of the growth story. We do have to be watchful that asset prices don't become bubbles, and so we do have to be watchful. I think the central bankers are certainly going to be very watchful as well.
2017 was a great year for IPOs. It was a great year for fundraising. Do you believe that the momentum is likely to continue into 2018? And M&A, do you expect M&A to pick up given the fact that we've got this big tax plan that's been unveiled by President Trump on account of repatriation, etc.? Do you see massive restructuring, A and B, consolidation and M&A as well?
I am bullish about M&A, and I believe that the trend will continue. And it's enabled by, as I said, the fourth industrial revolution. It requires new business models, new investments in technology. It's a very exciting time.
Well, what is it that you're going to be watching out for in 2018? The biggest opportunity and the single biggest risk?
The biggest opportunity is if C-level executives really take advantage of the optimism that Industry 4.0 brings forth. The biggest risk is us overcorrecting, if you will. I mean, the financial markets overcorrecting.
You know, you've looked at India for years now. You've been evaluating and assessing Modinomics, if I could call it that. What's your take on what the Prime Minister has been able to deliver on and what the expectations are now from him?
Well, Modi has extraordinary expectations. Remember, he is someone who people see as the great story. He's someone who is, I think, aspiring to be what I call a transformational leader. And by transformational, I mean really to take India to the next level of its status on the global economic front. And that, of course, is not something that can be done in 3 or 4 or 5 years. It's something, you know, when you evaluate a chief executive officer, you can't evaluate him over 4 to 6 years or her over 4 to 6 years. They need at least 10 years. So we're going to have to evaluate Modi over this term, and then, of course, he'll be re-elected and over the next term.
You're certain about that?
Well, I think India should give him the benefit of letting him work at transforming India. He's already put in place a number of building blocks with demonetization, anti-corruption, transparency. Doing international business in India has become easier. Now, I know the domestic market is always going to be more cynical. Lots of people's short-term lives have been possibly disrupted by the demonetization. We all know that. People love to criticize the demonetization process and how it was handled. And perhaps some of the logistics of that could have been more efficient. But having said that, he has a vision. And he's got to balance the long-term vision with the interim vision with the sort of short-term logistics. And I think where he has to obviously focus more is making sure the short-term communication with his constituencies across all of India is continued to focus on. He is, you know, he's got to balance today this whole juxtaposition of being an identity populist leader, which he is, with being a long-term transformational leader. And, you know, is he going to be the next sort of Nehru of his time?
Well, what is going to be the one thing that you would watch out for in 2018? You believe that the bull market is here to stay, but what is going to be the one thing that you would watch out for specifically?
I think the world, this is the first time where you probably have not just 1 or 2 geopolitical risks, but you probably have 4, 5, or 6 substantial geopolitical risks. So I think from that standpoint, the thing I would look at for is which one of those geopolitical risks will actually materialize and sort of shock the world. And I think we all know there's a whole list of them, but there's no question this is the first time in a long time that we've had so many.
Well, geopolitics continues to be the biggest concern and the biggest worry. John, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us and braving this cold winter morning here in Davos to be here with us.
It's warmer than usual, but the snow is here.
The snow is here. Thanks very much.
Thank you for asking.